A free queen sits in the middle of the board, and a master is about to take it. That one greedy move is how he loses to a 13-year-old. His name is Donald Byrne, a seasoned American master. The boy across the table is 13 years old. His name is Bobby Fischer, and most of the world has never heard of him. New York, 1956. The opening flows past in moves both players know by heart. Byrne builds quietly on the flanks. Fischer fianchettos his bishop, castles his king to safety, and waits. Nothing is decided yet. Then Byrne's queen steps out early to b3, hunting loose pawns. The center catches fire. Fischer surrenders a pawn, and the white queen darts to c4 to scoop it up. The boy shores up his position with a quiet pawn to c6, while Byrne stakes out the middle with a pawn to e4. Fischer brings a knight to d7, then reroutes it to b6 to jab at the white queen. Byrne slides a rook to d1, lining it up behind his d-pawn. The white queen lurches again to c5, looking busy but drifting from home. Fischer answers by developing his bishop to g4, leaning on the knight that holds Byrne's game together. Then Byrne makes the move that quietly hands the game away. His bishop goes to g5, and in an instant the boy's pieces come alive. From here, the master is the one fighting to survive.
The boy is moving too fast, too sure. Something here is off.
The 13-year-old answers with a move that turns heads. A knight leaps to the very rim, to a4, striking straight at the white queen. It is the kind of idea that makes a room lean in. Byrne's queen scrambles to a3, dodging the threat. The knights collide on c3, Fischer trading one off, and Byrne recaptures with his b-pawn, splintering his own pawns in the process. Fischer's knight snaps off the pawn on e4, right in the heart of the board. Byrne lashes back, his bishop grabbing a pawn on e7. The black queen settles back on b6. Byrne repositions a bishop to c4, but Fischer's knight just snatches another pawn on c3. The master answers by sliding a bishop to c5, trying to wring something from his pieces. Fischer's rook swings to e8 with check, and Byrne's king is shoved to f1 by hand. No castling now, the king stuck out in the open. Then comes the move the whole world would remember. Fischer's bishop drifts quietly to e6, and in doing so, it leaves his own queen hanging, free for the taking. It looks for all the world like a child's blunder.
A whole queen, just sitting there. All I have to do is reach out and take it.
Byrne takes it. His bishop sweeps the black queen off b6, the most natural move on the board, and the one that loses him the game. He never had to. The queen could have simply captured the knight on c3 instead, refused the gift, and stayed in a game he was only a little worse in. But the queen was real, and the temptation was too much. Byrne reached out and took it. And now the trap springs shut. Fischer's bishop snaps off the bishop on c4 with check, and suddenly it is the white king who stands in the open, hunted. The king ducks to g1, a knight stabs into e2 with check, and back to f1 the king goes, with no choice in the matter. Then the knight crashes through, snatching a pawn on d4 with check. The king staggers to g1, the knight swings back to e2 checking again, and once more the king is herded to f1. A windmill, winning material with every spin. The knight springs to c3 with another check, and as the king tucks back to g1, a black pawn finally collects the bishop on b6. The queen Byrne won is already half paid back. Byrne's queen swings to b4, hunting for any counterplay at all. Fischer parks a rook on a4, and the white queen grabs a pawn on b6 in answer, but the bleeding does not stop. Then the knight collects a whole rook on d1. Byrne is hopelessly behind now, and all he can do is give his king a breath of air with a pawn to h3. Fischer's rook gobbles a pawn on a2. The white king shuffles to h2, and a knight snaps off yet another pawn on f2. The master's position is a ruin. Desperate to trade pieces off, Byrne offers a rook on e1. Fischer simply takes it. The white queen lunges to d8 with a check, one last flash of teeth. Fischer calmly drops his bishop back to f8 to block, and Byrne's knight takes the rook on e1. Every trade only makes the loss plainer.
There is nothing here, no trick, no trade, nothing that saves me.
The pieces settle into the long grind. Fischer centralizes a bishop on d5. Byrne's knight returns to f3, the black knight reroutes to e4, and the white queen drifts all the way out to b8, about as far from her own king as she can get. Fischer pushes a pawn to b5, claiming space on the flank. Byrne shoves his h-pawn forward, the boy matches it, and the white knight hops into e5 looking for a foothold. But Fischer is not finished. He is only getting ready. And then the boy does something astonishing. With his opponent helpless, he simply strolls his own king to g7. No check, no capture, just calm. One of the quietest, brilliant moves ever played. Byrne can only wait. His king edges to g1, nothing to do but watch what is coming. Now the boy strikes. His bishop drops to c5 with check, and the white king's last march begins. Byrne sends his king to f1, but the only thing left to decide is how long it takes. He might have fled the other way to h2, but the knight and bishop would have followed him into that corner just the same. There was no good square left for him anywhere on the board. What follows is a forced march. A knight check from g3 sends the king to e1. The dark bishop checks from b4 and drives him to d1. The light bishop joins in with a check from b3, hurting him to c1. A knight check on e2 pushes him to b1, and one more from c3 chases him straight back to c1. 5 checks, 5 steps, and not a single one of them a choice. The little rook comes to rest on c2, checkmate. The white king cannot take the rook, because a bishop on b3 is guarding it. He cannot run, because the knight on c3 and the rook itself lock every door around him. And the white queen, the very piece Byrne reached for all those moves ago, sits forgotten on b8, a whole board away from the king who needs her. Donald Byrne and Bobby Fischer, New York, 1956. A 13-year-old checkmates a master in what the world would forever call the game of the century. The free queen was the most expensive piece he ever took.